Hi again, and welcome to the No Scrubs Allowed video podcast. This one is about the 2015 NBA Finals. We're going to be talking all about that, me and Eddie here. But before we start, I want to let you guys all know that we started a Twitter. We now have our own Twitter handle. It is at No Scrubs Sports. So that's Twitter, and then at No Scrubs Sports. And you can follow us, and we'll just be posting random stat lines maybe, but anytime we post on the blog, we'll put that up there and let you guys kind of have a direct link to that. So anyways, this is all about the NBA Finals. This is what we're going to talk about. So the 2015 NBA Finals this year are the Cleveland Cavaliers, led by LeBron James, and the Golden State Warriors, led by the MVP, Stephen Curry. So first off, Eddie, how did the Cavs get here? What did the Cavs do to make it through the East?
Yeah, the Cavs. Well, and I think it's worth noting. I mean, remember, if you had told anybody this time last year that the Cavs would be in the finals, most people would have said you're crazy. Even with the speculation that LeBron might be heading back to Cleveland, most people thought he'd stay in Miami. But as we all know, he ended up in Cleveland, and Cleveland had an up and down regular season and finished really strong, as hot as anybody. And then they entered the playoffs, and they swept a really overmatched yet scrappy Boston team in round one. We had the whole incident with it's Olynyk, right? The foreign guy for Boston. Yep, we had that whole incident with him and Kevin Love. So then Kevin Love goes down, and a lot of people wondered how's this going to affect the Cavs. And honestly, they really didn't miss a beat. They did face a 2-1 deficit in round two against the Bulls, and it was looking a little iffy there, especially after that Derrick Rose crazy banking buzzer beater. But then Cleveland got a buzzer beater of their own. LeBron hit a really clutch shot from the corner for them to win Game 4. And that really turned the series. They beat the Bulls in 6, and from there, a lot of people wondered, maybe this is a team that'll finally stump Cleveland, the Hawks, and it turned out to be the exact opposite. Other than Game 3, when the Hawks minus Al Horford, who got ejected for, as we all know, that crazy elbow call that got him a flagrant 2, they overcame that game. LeBron put up that crazy stat line, and the other 3 games weren't even close. And Cleveland swept the Hawks, and here they are in the finals. And, a lot of people thought they'd be here, but there were definitely doubters, and I'll admit I was one of them. I thought the Hawks or the Bulls would get to them, but yeah, it turned out well for them.
Yeah, so, I mean, really, nobody really saw Cleveland being here. Even after LeBron James came over to Cleveland, a lot of people didn't have them as the Eastern favorites. They had the Hawks. They had Toronto, who ended up going out in the first round.
Yeah.
They had the Bulls even. They had a lot of people outside of Cleveland, especially once Kevin Love went down. But, yeah, like you said, they've made short work of the playoffs and got there pretty quickly. Which is ironic, actually. The Warriors had a very, very similar run, almost exactly like the Cavaliers, except the regular season. I mean, the regular season, the Warriors just dominated. No one was able to stop the Warriors. They put up number 1 offense that actually the Clippers passed them at the very end. But for the most part, number 1 offense. They had the number 1 defense, the tops in three-pointers, tops in assists, tops in everything. They were easily the number 1 team. Then they went into the playoffs, and they got to sweep Anthony Davis, who was making his playoff debut, and they made it look easy in all except one game. There in Game 3, they had to have a 20-point comeback in the fourth quarter, led by Stephen Curry, that amazing shot in the corner that forced overtime, and then they went and ended up winning. Then, just like the Cavaliers, in round 2, they were down 2-1 to the Memphis Grizzlies. They had lost home court advantage, and they went in and went on a 3-game streak and ended up winning in 6 games, just like the Cavs. Then they went on to face the Houston Rockets and the MVP runner-up in James Harden.
Yep.
And while it was only 5 games, they took 1 game longer to beat the Rockets. It wasn't that close. It wasn't as close as it looked with them losing a game. The first 2 games are close, but beyond that, I mean, the Warriors really looked like the better team all around. I'd kind of side with Stephen A. In what they say that it looked like they just wanted to win at home. So in Game 4, they kind of laid down a little bit and let the Rockets kind of win it. Not to take anything away from James Harden, but it looked like the Warriors just wanted to go back to Oracle and win there. So both of these teams really looked similar in their playoff runs. But which one do you think actually had the tougher road? If you had to kind of grade the teams they were playing or the situations they had to go through, which one had the tougher road to make it to the finals in your opinion?
It's funny. You're right. Both of them did face that 2-1 deficit. I didn't even realize that. I know you emphasized earlier today how similar their run was, but wow, it really was similar. I feel like just being in the West, the Warriors had the tougher road. Memphis legitimately had them on the ropes there for a second. They bounced back in a huge way in Game 4. I thought that was really the first big adversity they'd faced all season, and I really liked how they responded. I think Curry had close to 40 that night, if I remember right. I mean, he went off, and they just destroyed the Grizzlies in Game 4, and that turned the series. Cleveland, you could say they had a tougher road in the sense that the Bulls played them close a lot of those games, but just in general, I think the Western Conference is the reason why it's everybody calls it the best conference. It is every team the Warriors played was, with the exception of maybe the Bulls and the Hawks. I mean, Grizzlies, I think, are better than both those teams. I think Houston's better than both those teams. I think Warriors had the tougher road.
Okay, I tend to agree with you. I don't think either team really had as tough a road as I think they should have. I was on a podcast earlier this week or last week, I think it was earlier this week, on iTunes, and I was asked kind of that same question. But I don't think that either team had a conference finals that they should have. I think the Clippers should have beaten the Rockets. I think they were the better team. And I think the Wizards were the better team over the Hawks. So I think both the Warriors and the Cavs actually kind of got a break there in their conference finals, and it showed when both of them basically dominated. But if I had to lean one way, I would say that the Warriors got the easier or the toughest road just based on that Western Conference thing. The Pelicans, the Cavs would have probably swept the Pelicans too. I think really the only team that was the better one is, like you said, Memphis. I think both the Cavs and the Warriors have proven to be just a step above everyone else in the NBA. So I think it's the right matchup. Again, I wish the conference finals would have been the Clippers and the Wizards, but I still think even if that was the case, I think it would be the Warriors against the Cavs in the finals. So I think it was the right matchup there.
Yeah, and that's where, we get into the whole – I really wish they would just seed each conference by record throughout the divisions. If you win your division, great, you're in. But, just throughout the records. We all much rather would have seen – as great of a series as it was, Spurs-Clippers should have been happening in the second round, not the first. And then the winner would have played the Warriors in a much better series than what we just witnessed.
I agree. I completely agree. So we'll switch a little away from the teams and into players. The star players are, of course, LeBron and Steph Curry. There's no denying that those two are the star players. What can this mean towards their legacy? Obviously, LeBron James already has a bigger legacy than Stephen Curry.
Yeah.
But I mean, what can it mean for each of them? We'll start with LeBron. What does this mean for LeBron?
I think, man, if LeBron wins, I mean, first off, what a story to go, to leave Cleveland, to play really probably his 4 prime years. I still think LeBron's great, but I think he's at the tail end of his prime, maybe not quite at his prime anymore. Regardless, though, playing his prime years in Miami, winning them 2 championships, getting two other finals, and while Cleveland just watched, and really it was a nasty divorce, and for him to come back to the remarriage, if you want to say, and just for him to really put this team on his back and teach these guys how to win. If they somehow beat a Warriors team that I do think should be a favorite to win, I do think is the more talented team. If they somehow beat them, despite having to go on the road to Golden State the first 2 games, man, what it would do for his legacy. I mean, at that point, we got to start talking about him. I wouldn't put him on MJ's level, but top. Maybe you do argue him as the undisputed number 2 at that point with 3 rings, bringing a championship to Cleveland, who, let's just be real, it's a cursed city. Like, that city just does not win championships. Giving the Cavs their first ever championship. I mean, all those things. And I think I say all this too because I really do believe it would take probably LeBron's best performance of his career to pull it off in this finals.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I just want to basically echo everything you said. I don't think that the Cavaliers as a whole team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, can beat the team, the Golden State Warriors. So like you just said, I mean, it's going to take an otherworldly performance by LeBron James because when you just look at the teams, which we'll get to in a minute, but when you just look at the teams from like a step back, Golden State just looks like the better team, and they are the better team. So yeah, it's going to take a whole different level for LeBron. But yeah, I agree. LeBron coming home, like I said earlier, nobody expected them to be in the finals their first year. Even as the season went on, their odds still weren't even the best in the East to win. I think the Bulls had the best odds by like Vegas. So nobody expected it in their first year. They expected maybe next year or their third year they'd know where they are and they could probably make the finals and make a run at it. LeBron, I mean, going to be in his 5th straight finals appearance, which is already amazing. Mm-hmm. But you got to win. I mean, he's only won the 2. He went 2 for 4 there in Miami. So he needs to get over that hump, get higher averages in there. But I think that the Cavs battled through a ton. When they started the season, they had no clue what to do with Kevin Love. And they never really figured out what to do with Kevin Love, which I think losing him didn't hurt them as much as it could have if they were using him at his full potential. Then in the playoffs, I mean, Love got injured. Kyrie got injured for a while. And they had to learn how to deal with that. And then this isn't as big of a story because the Warriors are dealing with it too, but they're dealing with an NBA rookie head coach. This guy, I mean, he's not a rookie. He hates being called a rookie, so I'm going to call him an NBA rookie. He's an NBA rookie head coach, and that does factor in. And I think that actually helps LeBron's legacy because we've seen LeBron in the playoffs taking over that team. I mean, LeBron's been the player coach. I even watched a talk with LeBron, and that last second shot he hit against the Bulls, David Blatt had him inbounding that ball, and LeBron scratched it, and he said, "No, I'm not going to inbound this. You pass me the ball, and we're either going to win by my hand or we're not." And so, I mean, that's
just to interrupt you. I mean, I know that's something you and I both, watching LeBron James over the years, we always wanted to see him take that shot. We both acknowledge he's the most talented guy in the game. Take the shot. And we understood a little bit when Wade would take it in Miami, but still, I think of the dishes to Delonte West, Mo Williams, or even dishing it to Chris Bosh. Come on, LeBron, take the dang shot.
Right,
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I like that about LeBron, that he's doing that now.
Me too. I mean, if I was his head coach, he would get the ball every time within 5 seconds left. Like I wouldn't even draw the play. So I don't really know what David Blatt was doing there, but I'm glad that LeBron scrapped it and decided to go for it on himself. So he's really making that effort to take the next step, to be a leader instead of just a great player. And he would, I think, have a legitimate argument for the greatest of all time. I don't think he would be it. I'm not even sure he would be top 2, at least not in my list, because I'm not a huge LeBron fan. But the people that are arguing LeBron would actually have more of an argument. I don't think there's any argument right now. So I think when those people argue LeBron, they're just way wrong. But I mean, if he ends up winning, they'll have more to argue. And I think it would be a legitimate argument at that point.
And I know it's not on the agenda, Travis, but I think we should briefly touch on what would this mean if he loses? To drop the
I was going to touch on that a little bit after this, which I mean, we can get to it now, but after we're done talking about both of them, so you don't get too far ahead of me, I want to talk about which one really needs this more, but out of the two players. But if LeBron loses, I mean, he goes from legitimate greatest of all time to kind of the Peyton Manning of basketball. He can't win when it counts. He could be one of the best players, but he can't win when it counts. And again, I mean, he's going to get the passes. He's going to get the Kevin Love's injured, the new head coach. He's going to get these passes playing against the best team. So this is by far his easiest year. If he doesn't win it this year, it's not a problem. I mean, easiest is in like expectations. So losing it this year is not as big of a deal to him as the ones he lost in previous years. But I mean, obviously he still needs to win, go 3 for 5 in the finals instead of 2 for 5. That's a huge, huge difference in my opinion.
Yeah. And I you said 3 for 5, technically 3 for 6 because of that one. But we all know that one. That was literally LeBron carrying Cleveland.
Yeah, they should not even have been in the finals. I don't even think they should have been in the finals, and he did amazingly well to get them there. So I completely discount that finals altogether. I don't even, and I don't like LeBron, but I don't give him a loss there. I mean, he did far and above his expectations to even get them there. So
yeah. I mean, I agree. Like if he doesn't win this finals, like I won't hold it as against him as maybe like definitely the one that always sticks out to me is the Dallas loss. And I mean, I'm a Spurs fan, but even I acknowledge like LeBron was the season he had, I think he shot over 50% or whatever last year. Like he was right there in his prime. And I do think the Spurs were the better team, but I don't know, there's just something about, as much as I love Tim Duncan, my favorite player, something about a 38-year-old guy and his team beating you that when you're supposedly the next Michael Jordan, it doesn't sit well with me as an analyst of the game. So if they lose this one, I do think I'll give him somewhat of a pass, but not a total pass. I mean, that would be dropping to 2 and 5, and he's still the best player on the court, supposedly, unless Steph Curry reaches heights we haven't yet to see. And Steph Curry's great, and I think I'm stepping into our next topic on what this would mean if Steph Curry comes out on top.
Right. And yeah, let's go ahead and touch on that. Stephen Curry, this guy, which again I'll talk about a little right after we get over this part, but he doesn't need this win, but it's going to be huge for him if he does get the win. Kind of like on a lesser extent because Kawhi Leonard isn't the star of the Spurs, but Kawhi Leonard didn't need a championship last year, which he got one, but he didn't need it. Even with a loss, he's still on the upswing, and that's the way Stephen Curry is. He's going to continue to climb, win or lose. He's going to continue to become one of the best in the league. But a win means a lot to him. I mean, he is the go-to guy for a brand new style of basketball. everybody knows the Spurs style wins championships. When the Lakers won, they had Shaq. Even when they had Pau Gasol, I mean, they had a nice big man. They could do their stuff. It's a grit and grind kind of game that wins. You got to play strong defense, and you got to be fundamental. You got to get the ball down low. You got to play really efficient possessions. And the Warriors have taken it to a new level. They still play great defense, and that's what's actually pushed them over the top compared to the Suns or the Warriors from recent years. But they don't play an efficient style. They are efficient because they shoot almost 50% from the three. But as far as a style standpoint is concerned, that's not an efficient style to just heap up threes. On the fast break, Curry will just stop and shoot it from three instead of going to the basket. And that's a style that if you sat down and told a coach 20 years ago, this is what we're going to do, he would laugh in your face and you would be run off the court. That's just not the way you play basketball. But the Warriors are doing it. And, of course, Curry's leading the charge right there. And I think a win, I mean, would solidify the first chapter in him becoming the greatest of all time point guards. He's still got a long way to go. He's not by any means. But it would get that first chapter in a way, get the championship out of the way that you kind of need to have. And he would run into the likes of those. I have some written here. I mean, Magic Johnson, who was kind of a point forward, but a lot of people call him the point guard of that team. Jerry West, Bob Cousy, Isaiah Thomas, those type people, he would be up in that list already at this young age. Mm-hmm. So I think a win would mean a lot to him as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, those names you brought up, because usually it's a big man's league, and I think that's why we've always held Jordan on such a pedestal, because in a big man's league, as a guard, he dominated. And we won't get too much into MJ. We could talk about him all day. But no, with Steph, I mean, he'd be a pioneer in a sense. First guy to, one, people forget, but the Warriors very much have, since 1975, they very much have had a Clipper-like history. A lot of, when they have made the playoffs, disappointments, and many years where they were watching ping pong balls bounce around. And, I'm only 26 years old, but my only real positive memory of Warriors basketball was when they upset Dallas, when Dallas won over 60 games. Outside of that, and their crowd, which we'll get into them later, I had big major props to the folks that pack out the Oracle. But yeah, Curry, if he wins, just what it would do for his legacy. He's already, he won the MVP. He adds a finals MVP and a ring. It begs the question, although LeBron is obviously more talented, if Curry can win a championship and continually have his team in contention from this point forward, maybe we look at this as the year that he became the best player in the league. I know that's a lot. Some people will think I'm crazy, but if this is the direction the league's going, pace and space and guys that just can shoot at a high efficiency and also dish as well as Curry dishes, maybe this is the way the game's going, and maybe he will be the face of the league from here on out.
Right. And I agree with that. I don't think that Curry is a better player than LeBron, but as the league itself is changing, he could be the best player in the league because of the style that the league adopts. I agree with you there. So real quickly, I don't want to sit huge on the cities, but you talked about Oracle. I mean, what would this mean for Oakland? What would this mean for the fans at Oracle if the Warriors get their first championship since 1975?
I mean, everybody gets excited when they get to the finals, but for anybody who was watching ESPN, I know you and I both were, just those people were partying like they had won it all outside the Oracle, just going nuts. We're talking about a city that they haven't won a championship in quite some time. I think the A's got one in the late '80s, early '90s. I
believe
and
so.
and then the Raiders haven't won one since
Theirs was
early
70s too, right? Or 80s, early 80s.
early '80s with Marcus Allen. But there's been a lot of disappointment, and I'm a little more familiar with Oakland than the average non-Oaklander, just because other job outside of here, I booked some hotels in Oakland, and there's nice parts of Oakland, and then of course Oakland has that bad reputation. So for them to be champions, for their fans who, for years, even when the Warriors have stunk, have been recognized as arguably the best in the league. At fan base, that city, I mean, their legend will start to grow a little bit. It's not just the passionate fans, but it's the passionate fans of the championship team. And it does change things. All of a sudden, that state becomes, it's still a Lakers state just because of their history, but it becomes a little bit more of a Warriors state. And the Warriors can actually, it won't just be, oh, assumed you're a Laker fan. It'll be, oh, are you a Warriors fan? Like, there's just a lot of things that will change in that culture in the Bay Area, and just, I think, in the basketball culture of California as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when the fans can be that adamant about a bad team, when they were winning lotteries, they still had a packed house, and they still had some of the craziest fans. Going back to football, even when Oakland has 2-14 seasons, they have fans just rushing their field. I mean, they have the most passionate fans in Oakland, and I don't know much about the A's. I don't know if the baseball fans are as crazy as football and basketball, but they do have great fans even when they're losing. So for that city to be able to have a championship and actually have something to cheer about would be amazing.
Because they are so, the last time the Warriors won a championship was '75 with Rick Barry, the great Hall of Famer, was there. And it's funny that, I mean, Barry, back then, I don't think they were considered threes, but Barry was a shooter the way that Curry was. I think it's funny that it took that long for them to find that next Rick Barry. I think they have it, and obviously a little bit different players, but I think they are comparable in how high a percentage they shoot the long-range shot. And Rick Barry is one of the greatest free throw shooters also. Curry's a great one too. So
yes. Yeah, and then now we're going to turn our sights to Cleveland a little bit. I mean, this is just a cursed city, like you said earlier. I mean, Cleveland just doesn't win. That's not what they do. They're rivaled with Detroit as the most nationally renowned just bad city. Not even as far as sports are concerned, but just city in general. Cleveland and Detroit kind of battle it out, at least from an outsider standpoint, as the two low cities. So they went and they got LeBron James way back in the day. Now it seems they grabbed LeBron James out of high school and they said, this hometown kid's going to bring us a championship. Well, he brought him a finals. He brought him a couple 60-win seasons, but never a championship. And Cleveland were hopeful. They were ready, and he leaves them. He just breaks all their hearts, does the decision, goes to Miami, and Cleveland just goes right back to the bottom. Everyone, once again, just says, well, Cleveland never has a chance again. Cleveland is a cursed city. They're never going to win. The Browns are over here losing everything. Everybody's just losing. The Indians kind of stink, as always, and just everybody's losing. So then LeBron decides to come back, the homecoming, back to Cleveland, and that hope was already instilled in Cleveland. And I think another loss, if they get swept, it'll be really bad. If Cleveland gets swept again and just sent back, and then Kevin Love leaves, if all that stuff happens, that could be terrible for the city. But a win, I mean, that would propel them. They would be able to just once again just don LeBron as King James, king of the city, and that would, I think, honestly, that would boost everything. I think that would boost the Browns. I think that would boost the Indians, which the Indians are doing okay right now, but not at the level they need to be. I think it would boost the entire city. I think the economy would go. I think just everything. Like, I think that Cleveland needs this a lot more than Oakland from a city standpoint, because I think the whole city will just elevate their entire thing. And then David Blatt can really kind of solidify what he came to America to do. He was great in Europe. He won championships in Europe. He wasn't just a European coach. He was a good European coach. And when he came to America, people are saying, well, the NBA is different. The NBA is not the Euro League. Being a good coach in the Euro League doesn't mean you're a good coach in the NBA. Well, David Blatt can put all that to rest and say, listen, I'm just a good coach. Stop saying that I'm a good foreign coach. Stop saying that I'm all these things. I'm just a good coach. And Dan Gilbert will have finally made a good choice. And his only good choice that he made, well, I think Kyrie Irving. Picking LeBron James and picking Kyrie Irving were two good choices that Dan Gilbert made. But bringing in David Blatt, I like the guy. A lot of people give David Blatt flack, but I think he's actually a really good coach that just has to deal with LeBron James. It's like trying to coach Kobe Bryant. It's not going to be the same as just coaching a regular team. And I think he's a good coach. And so I think that will really propel Cleveland ahead, and just the whole city will take a next step that I hope that they're able to make anyway.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, and perhaps we should have mentioned this with LeBron, think about it. LeBron will pretty much, other than matching Michael with 6 rings, he will have done everything. He will have won multiple championships. And winning one in Cleveland, as you and I have always said, winning one there will outweigh the 2 he won in Miami by far.
I agree.
And I think just from this point forward, I mean, even as a LeBron critic here, I'll have a hard time criticizing him going forward from there, just because it would be the most impressive thing he's done.
Okay. All right, so let's get down to the real business now. We talked about the history of the teams, how they got here, what it means to them, and everything. But we didn't touch on it. So real quick, just a real quick thing: who out of LeBron and Curry, who needs this championship more? Who do you think it would benefit greater to win, and who would it hurt more to lose? Just real quick.
LeBron, he's 30. I mean, in one sense, I think Cleveland, just being in the East, there's a good chance they'll get back. I don't think this will be the last time he'll make the finals, but the bottom line is he's 30 years old, and it's going to get harder every year after this. And I don't, even the East, as bad as it's been over the years, I just have to think that things are going to start to turn. Washington will be better next year. They already would have been a threat. I don't know. Now, if I was going to argue for Curry, I would just say this: the West is so hard that he probably won't have an easier path through the West than he had this year. So if he doesn't get it this year, well, I think Curry is right in the middle of his prime. It could get tougher going forward. So
right.
I guess I'm 50-50 on it, Travis. It's each of them.
That's actually a good point.
Each of them will feel a little like, man, what could have been if they don't get it this year, just because the paths to get there were easier than they've been in past years.
Right. I mean, that's a great point. Until you just spoke, I was 100% LeBron needs this more. And for the same reasons that you said, while I still think LeBron is easily top 2 or 3 people in the league, he's past his prime. Now, LeBron past his prime is still better than everyone else. Yeah. But I don't think he's getting any better. I think he's slowly getting worse as the years go on, and his chances are going to continue to run out. I do think the East is getting better. I think, like you said, Washington's getting better. I think Boston's going to get better.
If Atlanta
think,
adds a superstar, if you guys check out our blog, I write about it. They have everything they need except that guy. Maybe that guy, like a DeMarcus Cousins or a Kevin Love, checks them out this summer. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, so I mean, Boston's going to get better. Bradley Stevens is a great coach. The Orlando Magic are going to get better, I think. They have a great team. They just need to figure out a coach and figure out a style that really suits them. I think the Bulls are actually going to get better because Noah will get healthy. Man, I already forgot his name. Most improved player guy. Jimmy Butler. Is continuing on the path to greatness, actually. This year, he just completely turned around. So now the Bulls don't even care as much about Derrick Rose, whereas they used to be like, we go by Derrick Rose. Well, now the Bulls are a real team, and they're getting better as a team. So, I mean, the East is getting stronger. The NBA is cyclical, so eventually the East is going to get strong again, and LeBron's losing that time. But like you said, which I hadn't thought of, Curry, the West is very much win now because you might not be guaranteed a shot next year. They had 10 teams that could have made the playoffs. So while the Warriors are number 1 this year, they could be number 9 next year and not even make the playoffs without even being a bad team. So I agree with you there. I mean, it could be very 50-50. I still would lean towards LeBron James because I think Curry has a chance to get back and a chance to win MVP some more and continue to do these things. But yeah, that was a very good point you said. Okay, so player matchups. What we really care about. This is the meat of it right here.
That's right.
And we'll start with some people that don't get a lot of love, the centers, Timothy Mozgov versus Andrew Bogut. Who do you have? Who would you take for your team if you were the GM? And who has the advantage? Just because you may pick one guy doesn't mean he has the advantage in this series. So
if I'm a GM, Mozgov, because he's younger and Bogut's banged up. Before this series, Bogut's so good on the defensive end. Just more natural center, I feel like. I know Mozgov will go in the post, but it's got to be Bogut for me for this series. I just think he's a vet. He's been in some playoff series before. This is really Mozgov's first go, and while he's impressed me, I just can't see in a game 6 at the Oracle Timothy Mozgov coming through.
Right. And I don't know if you looked at our notes, but I wrote the PER for this season in the numbers right beside their names. And Mozgov, I mean, out of the starters, he's the 3rd best guy or most efficient guy on the roster for the Cavs, and I didn't know that. Mozgov is a good shooter for being such a big man, and that's why he has a higher PER than Andrew Bogut. It's basically because of free throws. Bogut's not a great free throw shooter. Mozgov's up around 70%. He's actually pretty good. So the number's kind of misleading, but I'm with you. I think Bogut is the better all-around player, and that's neither team is going to focus on their center. Bogut might get a game where he has 15 points and like 10 rebounds, but he's not going to be the focal point. Mozgov is not going to be the focal point. I think Mozgov is a better defender than Bogut, but I feel like neither team's going to use that to their advantage. And Bogut's the better passer. He's got better vision. He can be used down on the block a little better than Mozgov offensively. So I think that I would give Bogut the edge in that as well, just because from a team standpoint. But I'm like you. I mean, if I'm the GM, I'd probably take Mozgov. But as far as this series is concerned, Bogut's probably going to have more impact.
Yeah, absolutely. The next matchup would be power forward and Tristan Thompson and Draymond Green.
Mm.
Who do you have there, Travis?
Man, I actually went back and forth on this a lot more than I should have. Since Kevin Love's gone down, Tristan Thompson has been not. I think he's been better than good. I think he's actually been legitimate, a player that, I mean, even LeBron James has defended him, saying you should come back to Cleveland. We have a spot for you. We want you to be here. Thompson has really stepped up his game. He's played really big minutes because of Love's absence, and he's shown up. But Draymond Green is the ultimate glue guy. He's the guy that brings the Warriors together. He'll be the one defending LeBron, at least to start out the series. He'll be the one defending LeBron. He's better defensively than Tristan Thompson. He's a small guy, but he battles and he goes really hard. I think that, and I keep going back and forth with this, but I think I'm going to have to go with Draymond for the sheer fact that he's going to be on LeBron James. He's going to be the biggest X factor. And I think that he's just a better player right now than Thompson, just for the sheer fact that Thompson doesn't have that experience. He sat behind Kevin Love the entire time, while as Draymond Green's had a whole season to really come to his own. So I would have to pick Draymond Green as having the advantage.
Yeah, I'm with you. I go with Draymond Green. Like you, very impressed by Thompson. I was impressed how good of a rebounder he is, especially on the defensive end. Really crashed the boards with a lot more tenacity than Kevin Love, who once averaged 15 a year, was doing for the Cavs. And it just, again, it shows you that stats don't always tell the whole story. Thompson, when Kyrie was down, was probably second or third best player behind LeBron, and I know JR's had quite the run for them. But yeah, Green, just his versatility. He reminds me of kind of a bigger, bulkier version of like a Kawhi Leonard, just in his versatility. You know, I know Green can hit threes. He can play inside. He can guard. Probably 2 through 5. Asking him a lot to guard a true point guard, but he's so versatile, and Kawhi is a similar player in that sense. I give the edge to Draymond, but it's not. If you told me at the beginning of the playoffs that I had to have this convo, the gap then is a lot smaller than it is now, and it's not a knock on Draymond. It's more Thompson is proving that he was worth the first round pick.
Right. Okay. So the next matchup is small forwards. LeBron James versus Harrison Barnes. Eddie, is there any argument whatsoever for Harrison Barnes in this?
Maybe if you're on drugs. But no, not even if you're on drugs. It's got to be LeBron. Now, I will say some good things about Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes was Golden State's best player in Game 5. Steph Curry didn't play bad, but he didn't play great. And Harrison just played out of his mind, and that's why they were able to close out Houston in 5. But no, I mean, LeBron has this sheer advantage here. Barnes is probably their second best option to guard LeBron, I think.
Starters, anyway. Maybe Andre Iguodala, but
yeah. So, I think you just hope that LeBron doesn't win this matchup 100-0 if you're Golden State. You hope Harrison Barnes can have maybe that Game 5 type of game at least once. If he does, I think Golden State definitely wins this series. If he doesn't, it's going to be more interesting.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. No knock against Harrison Barnes. The kid's young, and he's shown to be pretty good. Even this playoffs, he's shown to be worthy of a first-round draft pick, like you said, even with Thompson. These guys are stepping up, and that's a lot of the reason that they're in the finals, both teams. It's a lot of the reason they're in the finals. Their young guys are stepping up and playing well. But Harrison Barnes is no LeBron James, and again, it's no knock on him. Anybody in the West, anybody in the East, anytime you're doing a matchup against the Cavaliers, your small forward's going to lose, unless maybe you're Oklahoma City. LeBron James is just the best small forward in the league, definitely, not even a question. So sorry, Harrison Barnes, but you're just not. You're not LeBron James. You're a great player, and you're still growing, and you're going to be good, but you're not LeBron James. You're never going to be LeBron James, and so LeBron just wins this matchup hands down. And like you said, I mean, you just got to hope that Harrison Barnes steps up to the challenge. That's all that we can ask from him. Steve Kerr's not going to ask him to be a superhero. He's not going to ask him to outplay LeBron James. He just needs to come out and play his game and be able to step up and at least challenge LeBron James. And that's all Kerr's going to ask from him. And if he can do that, then he'll help his team maybe more so than LeBron, even though he doesn't win the individual matchup.
Yeah, definitely, man. All right, so we move to shooting guard.
Yeah, and I actually had to change that. We're not sure who's going to start, but Shumpert started every game versus the Hawks, so I put him in as a starter.
Wow, well, that definitely changes what I was going to say. Yeah, Shumpert, he's played very well. Probably the best basketball of his career. He really shined in that Hawks series. Klay Thompson's been a little frustrating for me to watch. There's games where he's looked great this playoffs. There's games where if it weren't for Curry just playing out of his mind, we would have been, Klay Thompson would have been on that scrub of the week, chopping block, because he's just, I don't know, he's frustrating. When he's hot, though, can get it hotter than anybody in the league. We haven't seen that quite yet. We saw flashes of it in Game 5, and then he got in foul trouble, and then he had the concussion. And I didn't even think of that, but the concussion factor, I know he's going to play, but it's still some guys, it takes them a while to be themselves. And if the symptoms ever come back, I mean, that would be a huge blow for Golden State. I give the edge to – I would pick Thompson in a draft by all means. I give the edge to Thompson. But if he struggles with a shot and things like that, my worry would be if it starts to impact him defensively, because I could see him even in some rare spots drawing LeBron, maybe on the wing if they're in a zone. And he is a good defender. But if his shot isn't falling, that's my only concern for Klay, is that he would, especially in a big moment like this, and he's had trouble in big moments, even during this playoffs, that it would affect him negatively.
Right.
But he has the edge. He's a great shooting guard and shoots the lights out of the ball when he's on.
Yeah. So I'm gonna actually change my answer from my notes. So I'm not even gonna be going to my notes. When I first made it, I was making it with J.R. Smith versus Thompson. And then I was like, wait a second, I'm not sure that J.R. Smith is going to be the starter. I actually don't know who's going to be the starter, but Shumpert started every single game against the Hawks. He started alongside Irving, and when Irving was hurt, he started alongside Dellavedova. So I'm going to put Shumpert in the starting lineup for at least now. And I'm not sure if Thompson is better than Shumpert right now. I mean, right now. Over the season, Thompson was better. If I was picking him as a GM, I would definitely pick Thompson. But these playoffs, I mean, Thompson hasn't performed at all. The only good game that I can think of with Klay Thompson actually playing well, in my opinion, is the game that Stephen Curry got a concussion, or not a concussion, but that Stephen Curry got hurt. Thompson went out and he played really well, and they got absolutely blown out of the water by the Rockets. I don't think that was Thompson's fault, but that was the only game that Thompson really played well, in my opinion. When Curry's been on the floor, and this happens a lot. This is no knock on Thompson, but in the playoffs, your best player is going to get the ball more often. He's going to shoot the ball more often. He's going to be your star, and that's Stephen Curry. So Thompson's kind of taken a back seat. Shumpert isn't required to be an offensive star. That's not his job. He's a defensive star, and he's a great defensive player. Shumpert's a good wing defender, and he's going to hound Thompson. I think he's going to keep Thompson at a low shooting percentage in the same way that Houston did. And so if I'm going for right now, this series, if it's anything like the rest of the playoffs have been, I'm actually going to say the edge goes to Shumpert because of what the team's asking for him to do. I think Shumpert is going to do his job better than Klay Thompson's going to do his job because the Cavs, they need Shumpert to play defense, and he's going to do that really well. The Warriors need Thompson to shoot threes, and he hasn't been doing that well. But like you said, I mean, if Thompson makes one, makes two, makes a third, then it's game over. He gets 37 points in a quarter, and you just lose. So the edge could swing right back to Thompson. I think Thompson's the better player, and I'd draft him in a heartbeat over Iman Shumpert. But right now, with the immediate reaction, what have you done for me lately reaction, I'm going to have to go with Shumpert on that one.
Wow. That's probably your most surprising take here. We'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, my notes say Thompson. But
admittedly, I haven't paid as close attention to Shumpert when I've watched the Cleveland games. But, I mean, I've noticed him. He has played well.
But Shumpert, just to put it in perspective, I know that he got hurt, but Shumpert was the guy guarding Kyle Korver. And before Kyle Korver got hurt, I mean, he still wasn't doing anything. Shumpert took him completely out of his game, and I think he can do the same to Thompson. Thompson's not any better of a player than Kyle Korver, in my opinion. So I think he could do the same thing. Now when game one starts, I'm not going to be looking at LeBron or Curry. You're going to have me watching Iman Shumpert. Dang it, Travis. Good.
All right, so we get to point guard, and an interesting matchup. I mean, I think we're both going to agree here on who we pick, but we haven't even talked about Kyrie Irving yet, and he is if he's on, he could be as explosive an offensive player as anybody in this series. I know he's battled some injuries. I would still say he's not completely 100%. Curry is, MVP for a reason. Best volume three-point shooter in the league by far. Best three-pass combo point guard maybe ever. He has the edge. But I think if Kyrie – I think Kyrie, if he had to guard Curry – that's the other thing. I'm not quite sure if Cleveland's going to stick him on Curry or not, if they're going to try somebody else. But regardless, if he has to stick with Curry, I think it will impact him on offense if he actually tries. But since he's not really a guy who gives a lot of effort on the defensive end, I don't think it will affect him too much offensively. If he gets hot, in my opinion, if Kyrie plays the way he did against my Spurs during the regular season, or just the way he did, he had that 4 or 5 game stretch in the regular season where he was putting up 40, 50, 30. If he plays like that at all during this finals, I give Cleveland a chance. But Curry by far is who I pick if I'm doing a franchise, and in this matchup, I do think he'll get the better of Kyrie.
I agree. Okay, so this is going to be the matchup to look at. Ultimately, it's going to be Curry and LeBron James is the star matchup that everybody's looking at. But as far as on the floor, assuming that they put Irving on Curry, it's going to be Kyrie versus Stephen. They're very similar builds. Curry's a little skinnier, but they're around the same size, and they do kind of the same thing. They're both offensive juggernauts. You blink your eye, turn to go grab your bag of chips, and you look back up, and they've scored 10 straight points. And both of them are the same way in that. I think Curry's a little more efficient than Irving.
Yeah.
And I think Curry does it more from three. Kyrie can drive a lot better than Curry can, but
he's a streaky three guy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but when Curry drives, he's looking to pass the ball. When Irving drives, he's looking to score the ball, and that's really the only difference. I think they can both put up points in bunches. I think that defensively, Kyrie Irving is like a slightly better Steve Nash. I don't think that Kyrie Irving is good at all on defense. And Curry's not great at defense either, but they mask that by switching everything. The Warriors are going to switch the ball every single time. It allows Curry to not have to play that good a defense because he's just going to double team. He's going to attack the ball at all times. Whereas Kyrie is going to try to man you 1v1, and he's not going to be able to stick with Curry. And so I have to give the slight edge to Curry. He's been hitting threes this postseason the same way he did in the regular season, and I can't see it changing. That's the thing. Like, Curry is almost impossible to guard because he has such a quick release. He will throw up the ball in a moment's notice from the ugliest spots on the floor. He'll be backed into a corner, and there's no chance that he shoots a three, and he just shoots a three and it swishes every time. And so for that reason, I have to give it to Curry. He's the MVP. He's, like you said, I mean, the best three-point shooter. He's probably the number one point guard this year, unless you give it to Russell Westbrook, which I don't think you do, unless you call James Harden a point guard, which I don't.
What about Chris Paul?
Well, Chris Paul quietly was up there as well, but I mean, Curry was the best point guard this year, and I think he was the best point guard this postseason, and I think he's just going to continue to be the best point guard on the floor. But that's definitely going to be the matchup to look at. All right, so we have the bench. We have the Cleveland bench, which is made up of three-point shooting and veterans that never see the floor. J.R. Smith, Dellavedova, James Jones, three-point shooters. Sean Marion, Kendrick Perkins, and Mike Miller, veterans that never see the floor. And then you have the Golden State bench with Andre Iguodala, who's going to come in to play defense, Festus Ezeli, David Lee, who doesn't really get to see the floor all that much, Spates, Brandon Rush, Sean Livingston, who's like their backup-ish point guard, and Leandro Barbosa, who really doesn't see as much of the floor as I think he should. Which bench is going to be more impactful?
Golden State, unless JR continues to shoot the ball at the ridiculous high percentage he did the last couple of games against Atlanta. I mean, JR could definitely – I just don't see it happening. One, Golden State is a better defensive team than Atlanta. They're not going to let JR just shoot open threes all day. Iguodala, I think you're not going to stop LeBron. Iguodala, though, could make LeBron work a little bit. Ezeli played very well, especially in Game 5 of that closeout game against Houston. I think he gives them some depth down low that Cleveland doesn't really have. I think he's better than Kendrick Perkins at this point. David Lee, again, doesn't see the floor that much, but he's a talented guy. And I think, Cleveland really doesn't have anybody like him on their bench. Spates is solid, can block a couple shots. Brandon Rush he fits Golden State's philosophy perfectly. Just gets up and down the court. And Livingston played pretty well last series as well. And I just think it's a deeper bench for Golden State. It will be interesting to see if Della Devoda, I can't say his name. It'll be interesting to see if he does anything clownish and scrubbish this finals. But yeah, unless Mike Miller turns back the clock to 2012, that OKC series, I just don't see Cleveland's bench having nearly the impact that Golden State's bench has.
Yeah, all right, looking talent-wise down this bench, I have to agree with you. I think that Golden State is the far more talented bench. I think they have at least 4 guys that could probably start on other rosters. Andre Iguodala came from being a starter, then came to Golden State and had to kind of take a back seat. I think Festus Ezeli could start on other teams. David Lee was a starter. He was a starter in New York. He was even a starter for Golden State for a while. Leandro Barbosa was a starter out in Phoenix. They have guys that have known how to start. They know how to play big minutes. They know how to do these things, even if they weren't for the greatest teams. Cleveland has perennial bench players, aside from Kendrick Perkins, but we know Perkins isn't going to see the floor. If he does, it's going to be a goon and go out there and hit Andrew Bogut in the face or something. But J.R. Smith is a perennial 6-man. He's been 6-man of the year. He knows what to do off the bench, which is really valuable. James Jones is LeBron James's 6-man. LeBron just kind of brings James Jones along with him wherever he goes and lets him come out and shoot threes randomly. Sean Marion was a starter at a point, but he's not that guy anymore. So I think Golden State has that in terms of talent and experience. But the way this series is going to go, honestly, I think Cleveland has more of a chance than I first gave them, because if it gets to a 3-point shooting contest, J.R. Smith's going to come out, and he's the next best heat check guy to Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson can get hot. Well, so can J.R. Smith. And both of them, I think I think J.R. Smith actually has the record for threes in a postseason, right? I think he hit. I don't know if he still has it, but he broke it at one point 2 years ago.
Yeah, he's had some games where he was at about 10, 11 threes.
Right.
You're right. He kind of was that original heat check guy.
Yeah. So, if it comes down to threes, I give Cleveland's bench the advantage, but because I don't see anyone on Golden State that can hit a three except maybe Barbosa. Brandon Rush can hit some threes. Livingston's not a great three-pointer. Iguodala's a terrible three-point threat. And the other guys are big men. So, yeah. But the Warriors do have the talent. They play defense. They're going to call on Iguodala to cover James. And I think that's where the difference is going to be. And so I actually as well get the slight edge to the Warriors, but it's only very slight, because I think if it gets to where they're dependent on the three, I think Cleveland could make a run with their bench and could easily outscore. That's the thing. Cleveland's bench can outscore the Golden State bench every single game, but I don't know if that's going to be what's the most impactful or not.
Right. Yep, 3-pointers, the great equalizer. And
yeah,
it's ironic because some of the same points I make in favor of Steph Curry, I end up using those against the Cleveland bench, just because none of those guys can quite shoot the three and do everything else that Stephen Curry does.
Right. Yeah. No, none of them are Stephen Curry, but J.R. Smith is a very, very close second to Klay Thompson, or at least right now, unless Thompson can break out. Okay, so we have 2 rookie coaches trying to coach these 2 star-studded teams. We have Steve Kerr and David Blatt. Steve Kerr was on the Bulls, won a lot of championships with the Bulls. He played for the Spurs, He was a GM for the Suns, and then he kind of was just in the media before going to the NBA to coach in Golden State. David Blatt was a EuroLeague champion. He was coach, so he's kind of a rookie, but kind of not. Who do you give the edge to here in terms of coaching?
Well, Kerr, I feel like, gosh, it's hard. Slight edge to Kerr. Blatt has more coaching experience, but Blatt definitely, I've seen fewer of Blatt's fingerprints on the way Cleveland plays and their style. I have seen in Kerr's fingerprints on how Golden State's played. I mean, yes, Kerr inherited a very defensively sound team when he got the Warriors from Mark Jackson, but there was always issue, and we would hear it whenever you'd listen to Bill Simmons and some of the other analysts who really know the game. There was always issues with like spacing and like how there was always this thought of like, just something was missing offensively. And Kerr got there, and barring, he did have a great assistant there in Alvin Gentry, who was kind of the mastermind, they say, behind this 3-point system that Golden State runs. But Kerr has, I think it's no mistake that Kerr gets there and they go from a good team to a great team. I mean, he's had, of course, the players play. Curry took another step this year. But I don't know. I'm a believer in Kerr. I could be biased. He did help my Spurs win a championship, and he has more NBA experience. And I know Blatt coached in some competitive EuroLeagues, but Kerr kind of has seen what it takes for teams to win, being around it for so long. And I just think he'll handle some of the pressure of the NBA final stage better than Blatt will.
Okay. I'm going to kind of go a little differently. I think I'm very 50-50 on this, but because I want to make a choice, I'm going to give a very slight edge to Kerr. But honestly, I don't think either of them are doing as much as they could be. I don't think either of them are doing as much as people think they are. David Blatt is basically just taking a back seat and letting LeBron James do things. While I don't discount what he's doing, he is a good coach. And like I said earlier in the broadcast, I think he's a good coach. He's really letting LeBron be the player coach. And that's okay because LeBron's good enough to do that. But I don't think that a lot of these calls are Blatt's calls. I think the game strategy is all David Blatt's, but in the moment, I think LeBron just scratches off a lot of plays. I think LeBron, when he's taking the ball down the floor, it's because he has something in mind that he wants to do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's David Blatt doing it. And when David Blatt wants to do something, it's Kyrie bringing the ball down. But a lot of times you'll see LeBron just tell Kyrie, no, like, give me the ball, and we're going to do something. So I don't think David Blatt's doing as much. But on the flip side, I don't think Steve Kerr is either. Mark Jackson's a good coach. I think he did get the raw end of the deal, which obviously it worked out. So the Warriors didn't make a mistake. But I think that Mark Jackson kind of got screwed. I think he's a good coach. And he had the Warriors trending upward. They improved every year that they were with Jackson. In 3 years, I mean, he got them up. I think last year they were 50. They had like 50-something wins. He was trending them upward. Yeah, they lost in the playoffs, and they lost pretty bad. But they were on the upslope, and the Warriors got impatient. They didn't want to wait that long. They went and got Kerr, and Kerr kind of pushed them over the top. But he inherited a great team, and he inherited young players that were getting better already. So who's to say Curry wouldn't have been the best player in the league under Mark Jackson? He was on that swing anyway to where he was improving. So it's really hard to tell what Steve Kerr actually did other than unlocking Alvin Gentry on the team. So I think the slight edge goes to Kerr for like what you said. I think he has more NBA knowledge and NBA experience. Even when he was an analyst, he got to see these coaches. He got to see Greg Popovich versus Eric Spoelstra in the finals. He got to see Rick Carlisle bring the Mavericks up through the ranks. I mean, he got to see these good coaches almost firsthand, while as Blatt was overseas not seeing that. He was doing his own thing. So I think Steve Kerr just has more exposure to good coaching and to the NBA style. So I give him a very, very slight edge. But, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I disagree with you a little bit on Jackson. I do think he was a good coach. And again, maybe it is all Alvin Gentry, but I do think Kerr did something with that offense because they went from very good to great this year, that offense of Golden State's. But anyways.
Okay, well, let's skip our next point. Let's bring our next point to the very end since that's kind of our thing. But we're going to close off with just who do you think is going to win, how many games, and who is the MVP?
All right, I'm on the spot. I entered this thinking Warriors in 6, but I thought about it, and that would be winning on Cleveland's floor. And Golden State, as great as they've been, there is winning the finals, as LeBron proved, especially when we think of that first year in Miami. It's hard. If it's your first time there as a team, it's very difficult to do it. And, even my Spurs, when we did it, we had David Robinson, we had Avery Johnson, we had some veterans that I just don't think Golden State has veterans, but they don't have veterans that have been in a lot of tough playoff battles. So I think if it's in Game 6, I think LeBron puts up a 40, 10, and 10, just some legendary performance. They win in Cleveland. But then you go back to the Oracle, and I like Warriors in 7. I thought 6, I've thought 5. The more I think about it, just both these teams, I don't know. I think we're going to see one of LeBron's best performances, and I do think Klay Thompson's going to struggle, so a lot's going to fall on Curry, and I do think he'll have enough when it matters most. Game 7, the Oracle will be wild. Warriors win by about 5 or 6 points. They pull away late. And Curry's your MVP, and a new era officially is christened in the NBA.
Okay, I kind of agree with you. I think that I don't think the Warriors are going to lose in Oracle. I really don't. I know that in the finals it's very tough to win the first 2 games, but I think the Warriors will do it. I think the Oracle is going to be something we've never seen before. It's going to be just on fire. And so I think they come out hyped. I think Curry is ready, and I think he plays really well. I think LeBron tries too hard to carry his team at the beginning, just because, he is LeBron. He's going to go back to being LeBron. And I think that the Warriors can win one in Cleveland, at least one. And so I actually have them winning it in 6. Like you, if it goes to the Oracle in Game 7, I don't think that LeBron can overcome that. I don't even know if Michael Jordan could overcome that court against this Warriors team. It would be very, very difficult. But I think the Warriors in 6, and like you, I think Stephen Curry's the MVP. He finishes off the best year, of course, for him, and one of the best point guard years ever, with a Finals MVP, and he's ushering in a new era, like you said. All right, so this podcast is no scrubs allowed. So we have no tolerance for scrubs here. No tolerance. So as we're watching this, if you had to predict who the scrub of this series is going to be, who is going to get the kick to the timeout corner of no scrubs allowed, Who are you going to go with? Who's going to be the scrub of the series?
I already see your pick, so I'm going Kyrie. And maybe I'm going out on a limb, but I think Kyrie will do something as well as he's played. I think he'll do something a little immature and stupid in a critical moment.
It is his first big time series, so
yeah, I think he will be a scrub like in either Game 6 or Game 7. He'll do something very ill-advised. Either he'll force up a 3, or because Kyrie does have, I like it about him. I respect it. He has that hero mentality. But there's going to be a situation where the ball really should go to LeBron, and Kyrie's going to just be a little bit too much of the man, and he's going to fail, and it's going to cost Cleveland.
Okay. Yeah, I wrote in my notes, I would so much enjoy LeBron James to be the scrub of the series. That would give me such great joy if LeBron finds a way to lose this by himself. But I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, he's shooting a lot worse this playoffs, but he's shown. I mean, he's taken it to another level once again. He's still LeBron James, and you can't discount that from him. So I don't think he's going to be the scrub. I think that J.R. Smith's going to be the scrub. J.R. Smith is like Kyrie Irving with the hero mentality, except that J.R. Smith isn't really that good. So he's going to remember. He's going to reminisce. He's going to have flashbacks of those 9, 10, 11 3-point games that he has in the playoffs, and he's going to try to do that. It's going to be the fourth quarter. It's going to be about a 4 or 5 point Warriors lead, and J.R. Smith is going to go up to LeBron and be like, I got this. And he's going to just walk out and start throwing up these 30-foot 3-point shots and just airball, shoot it over the backboard, just turn into J.R. Smith that we all know and love from Denver. And they're going to end up losing by 12 to 15 points. And everyone's going to look back and go, what is J.R. Smith doing on the floor? This guy is a complete scrub. He has the hero mentality, except that he's not a hero. So I think that it'll be him. He's very cocky. And I think if Curry or Klay Thompson get on fire one game, J.R. Smith's not going to be outdone. And he's going to go out. He's going to try to do it himself, and it's not going to work out.
And somewhere Carmelo Anthony will be laughing and shaking his head and saying, yep, I experienced that in Denver. I experienced that in New York.
Yes, J.R. Smith has been around the block following Carmelo. And
he'll send a text to LeBron, told you.
Exactly. So with that is our 2015 NBA Finals predictions. I had a nice little talk. I hope you enjoyed listening. And remember, there are no scrubs allowed here, so don't be a scrub.
Yes, don't be a scrub.